Welcome to the Getty-Dubay Italic Letter of the Day video series, where we use the Getty-Dubay Handwriting Success App to talk about best practices for each letter of the alphabet, one at a time. This video is for parents of school children, teachers, and adults who would like to work on their own handwriting. You can follow along using the app or any of the Getty-Dubay Italic handwriting workbooks, or simply use lined paper. Your handwriting can go places. Today we feature the letter I. The size we're starting at, which is 9mm, a line height, matches pretty well with grade school lined paper. As you can see, the so-called college ruled paper is a little smaller, and if you're using a legal tablet, that's about the size you'd be looking at. We're going to look first of all at some of the vocabulary that we'll be using throughout these videos. It's very important to know the term baseline. Baseline is the line on which your letter is going to sit. All letters reach the baseline. The waistline is the height of the standard lowercase letter body height. In other words, the letter I that we're doing today, it's often called the X height of a letter because that is also the height of the letter X. And as I mentioned, today we're using a 9mm body height. Letter I has no ascender or no descender, but if it did, it would go up to this ascender line or down to the descender line below the baseline. Notice that unlike with conventional cursive, italic ascender line and descender lines are only half the height of the body height of a letter. One of the things this deceptively simple letter I shows us is slope. So we're going to practice having a consistent slope by copying and tracing the model. Oops, that one was a little bent. Let's try again. And you know the secret of a straight line is exhaling on the downstroke. That makes a lot straighter line. And we're going to do one more guided letter I. Again, we're tracing. And now it's our turn to copy. So breathe out, downstroke, and a dot. The dot helps us recognize that this is a letter I, not a numeral 1. Another thing that this simple downstroke is showing us is letter spacing. Notice the spacing that we've established here is repeated on the next one. This would be a little wide for a word, so this simple letter establishes both stroke and spacing. Let's take another look at stroke. As long as you are consistent from one stroke to the next, you can have a different stroke angle. This is a little bit extreme. Some people even have a back slant, but it's really important that you're consistent from one stroke to the next. We wouldn't want one eye looking like this and the next looking like that. They should all line up, and all our downstrokes are going to be parallel. So now we're moving on to the cursive italic form of the letter I, and we're using a smaller body height. This is on page 28 of the app, and notice it's similar to the height now of the legal tablet. And if you are going to use this lined paper to follow along, you can make the body height equal to the distance between the lines. Okay, so again, we have a nice downstroke. It establishes our slope, and a little serif at the end. We can put a jot or a dot on the top of the I, again to signify that it's not a numeral 1. What is the serif doing there? That's allowing us to join into the next letter. And it also serves as a slight decoration. Okay, so now we go to the last assisted copying and now tracing, and now it's time for us to copy on our own. And again, I am establishing my own slope here and my own spacing and making sure it's consistent. Now with the letter I, we can use that serif to join into other letters, like the N, for instance. And there's my jot. I'll do that again on my own now. Tracing and copying. It's like a rehearsal and a performance. And this time I'll put a dot. We believe it's important to introduce letters in order of their complexity and not necessarily in alphabetical order, which is why we introduce the letter I, J, and L, for instance, before A, B, and C. Also, you can practice individual letters, and it's good to do that. Here I have 3 basic italic I's, and now I'm going to do 3 cursive italic I's. The nice thing about the app is I can write anywhere and then just digitally erase. However, after doing about 6 single letters, its usefulness diminishes. So we want to get right in there and combine our letter of the day with other letters. In this case, we're practicing joins into the letter I from other letters. And here we go. We're going to copy the model first. A into I and a jot. Just 2 strokes for both of those. And I'm jumping right down to the next line, doing the model again. And right next to it, I'm just going to have fun and do that on my own. Here's the letter C going into I. Again, a very smooth, elegant join, very light stroke, swinging up into the letter I and back down again. And here's the letter D going into I, very similar to the C and the A. And let's copy that below. And here's a nice name with 2 I's in it. We're going to copy the model first, a nice big capital M. We'll get to that in our video series. Join into M, swing up into the I, and 2 jots on either I. And let's try that on our own. We do not join out of capitals. The Roman caps are best left on their own. Let's take a look now at the history of the letter I, which is really fascinating and tells us a lot about the letters that we see in type and in handwriting from day to day. So the letter I began with the Egyptian hieroglyph for hand. The Phoenicians took that up, and as you can see, they simplified it in a way, but I think this looks more like a hand myself. Pretend it's holding a little baseball there. Here's the thumb and fingers, forearm, elbow, and arm. The Greeks simplified that even further. Notice how they took out the thumb, and the Greeks wrote in 2 different directions, right to left and left to right. The letter switched directions as the writing did. Eventually that was simplified to this ambidextrous straight line. The Romans adopted that and came up with this beautiful capital I that we know today from the Trajan column. They typically wrote that I with a brush, and then when they wanted to, they incised it in stone. And let's move over to what happened after the Romans. So shortly thereafter, the edged pen became used, sometimes made from a reed, and later using metal. This is the rustic style, and see how we already have that little serif beginning at the end. Uncial, half uncial, Carolingian. And it isn't until the 16th century that the letter J was added. Related to the I, it was called the long I. That's why the J also has a jot or dot on it, as does the I. And you can see that in the 15th century, writers elongated that J all the way down to a descender line. And here is today's modern italic. Here's the basic modern italic I that we learned, lowercase, and the modern italic lowercase cursive I. And one thing you want to know is to avoid, when you're writing it, the loop that often occurs with conventional loop cursive, which sometimes turns that letter into an E, confusingly. We hope you've enjoyed the letter I today. Look forward to seeing you again.